Reborn and back, in this life, I won't accommodate Cade Jiang anymore. Cade Jiang let Blair Yu move in, saying it was temporary. I didn't believe it and moved out immediately. In my previous life, Cade Jiang had me help him take care of his parents for 17 years, until they passed away. When I returned to my own home, my own son actually shut me out. Inside the door, Cade Jiang and Blair Yu were being intimate. My biological son acted like a simp, calling Blair Yu mom. In my previous life, I gave up my studies to take care of Cade Jiang's parents and children, becoming a devoted wife and mother. In this life, I will never live for others again. Looking at the admission letter from Southwest University in my hand, I almost laughed out loud with joy. No one knows. I have been reborn. My best friend was quite surprised when she found out I had applied to Southwest University. Your fiancé is working in the city, so why would you choose Southwest University? It's so far away for your studies. Don't let him slip away, she said. I smiled and replied, if he runs off with another woman, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. My friend looked at me, puzzled. I have a childhood betrothal with Cade Jiang. Our parents arranged it when we were kids, which was quite common in the village. We grew up together, and as we got older, I noticed he became more handsome and ambitious. I'm afraid some other beautiful woman might steal him away. So I obeyed his every wish and never refused any of his requests. Even my first time, I gave it to him without hesitation, though with shyness and fluster. At the time, I thought that as long as I didn't let him down, he wouldn't let me down either. Later, both he and I went to the city for school. He was a few years older than me. After graduating from university, he worked as a senior technician at a company in the city. Everyone thought I was marrying above my station. At that time, I had just graduated from high school and had received an admission letter from Southwest University. He said he wanted to get married, and my heart was overjoyed. I didn't hesitate and decisively gave up the opportunity to attend university, resolutely registering our marriage with him. The following year, we had a son named Jiang Hanyang. People said this son didn't resemble me at all but looked like Cade Jiang. As the child grows up, he'll naturally bond more with whoever he resembles. At the time, I didn't care much about these things. My parents passed away early, and I never had the chance to take care of them in their old age, which fills me with deep guilt. Cade Jiang's parents were bedridden with paralysis, with no one to care for them, and he begged me to return to the countryside to look after his parents. Without a second thought, I agreed immediately. To avoid affecting his work, I even brought along Jiang Hanyang, who was just over 2 years old. After that, the two of us were separated by distance. I'm here taking care of the elderly and raising the child, so he has no worries on his end and has developed quickly, becoming the department manager. He bought a house in the city, but I'm confined to this small world, tending to the elderly and the child. With no chance to go see it, I watched my son Jiang Hanyang grow from babbling as a baby to slowly maturing. When he reached school age, Cade Jiang took him to the city. Living with Cade Jiang has distanced the bond between my son and me. Every once in a while, Cade Jiang brings Jiang Hanyang back to visit his parents, and I get to see my son. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, but I don't feel that kind of passion from Cade Jiang. He seemed rather indifferent about that matter. I didn't think much about it at the time. The next day, they left in a hurry. Watching their retreating figures, I felt an indescribable sense of loss. I will continue to take meticulous care of his parents at home, until one day, the elderly couple passed away. When I eagerly returned to my own home in the city and opened the door, standing before me was a strange girl around 21 or 22 years old. I looked at her in astonishment. "Who are you looking for?" the girl asked me. I was about to ask her who she was and why she was in my house. At that moment, Jiang Hanyang stepped forward from behind. "What are you doing here?" Jiang Hanyang's tone carried a hint of displeasure when he saw me. "This is my home, why can't I come back?" I frowned at this son I had been missing day and night. I looked inside, and besides Cade Jiang, there was also a woman, Blair Yu. I knew her. The woman was called Blair Yu, a classmate of Cade Jiang's. The two of them had once had a relationship behind my back. Blair Yu married a man and had a daughter with him. After Blair Yu got divorced, she took her daughter Feng Xiuxiu and ran here. After I married K Jiang, he told me he would no longer have any contact with her. It turned out to be a scam. He tricked me into serving his parents while he was at home rekindling old flames with his lover. Why are you here? K Jiang walked up to me, his tone carrying a hint of annoyance. As if I had interrupted their happy life. From the looks in their eyes, it seemed as though I was the homewrecker, intruding on their family. A family that was theirs, not mine. My heart felt as if something had suddenly blocked it, making it hard to breathe. Han Yang, how can you speak to your mother like that? Come in and sit down. Blair, you seemed like the host of the house welcoming a guest. What happened? Have I become an outsider in this family? I stared at K Jiang in disbelief. This ungrateful scoundrel. His father suffered a cerebral infarction and is bedridden with paralysis, while his mother is in poor health and unable to care for him. K Jiang begged me to take care of his parents, so I had no choice but to return to the countryside to help tend to his bedridden father. Later, his mother also became paralyzed. I cared for the elderly couple day and night, while he was out there indulging in romantic affairs with other women, and this assistance of mine lasted for 17 years, until his parents passed away peacefully. But when I returned home, I never expected that K Jiang and Blair you would actually get married, leaving me as the outsider. And then there's this ungrateful bastard of a son. When he was 3 years old and had a high fever, I braved a raging snowstorm, carried him in my arms, trudged through deep snow for 20 miles to get him to the county hospital. That's how his life was saved. Like father, like son indeed. A pair of scumbags. What's going on here? I asked K Jiang with a frown. Nova, don't misunderstand. Blair you and her daughter haven't found a suitable place yet. So they're staying here temporarily, K Jiang explained to me. What a load of nonsense. It was after hearing these words from him that I came to believe him. Moreover, Han Yang and Xiao Xiao are already engaged now, K Jiang continued. What? The two got engaged without even telling me. Do they consider me an outsider? Mom, sit down quickly. Jiang Hanyang ran to Blair Yu's side, putting on an overly affectionate and fawning demeanor. Just after getting engaged, Jiang Hanyang actually started calling Blair Yu Mom. Yet towards me, his biological mother, he's as cold as ice. Why is it that after I gave birth to him and raised him, he would treat his own mother like this in the end? Did I do something wrong? I saw K Jiang and Jiang Hanyang looking at me with cold and unfamiliar eyes, as if I were an outsider disturbing their happy life. Angrily, I turned and left. Neither K Jiang nor Jiang Hanyang came out to see me off. While sitting in the car, I gave up everything for this family, only to end up becoming the extra person in the household. My heart ached, and I was overwhelmed with sorrow. Suddenly, I felt a tightness in my chest, my head spun, and I died of a sudden heart attack in the car. Fortunately, I was reborn, back to before I married K Jiang. Since I've been reborn, I must change the unjust fate of my previous life. I hid the admission letter from Southwest University. At that time, K Jiang and I lived in a small apartment that was his workplace's dormitory. I saw K Jiang holding Blair Yu's hand as they walked in, followed by another girl. A surge of anger rose in my heart. K Jiang was surprised to see me at home and quickly let go of Blair Yu's hand. Nova, why are you home? K Jiang asked in surprise. Nothing much happened at school today, so I came back early to cook for you, I said coldly, staring at Blair Yu. Blair Yu has fair skin, with a clean and delicate face, and a graceful figure. Even though she's had a child, her charm as a young woman makes men unable to resist. Sister-in-law, I'm really sorry to bother you again, Blair Yu said to me with an apologetic look on her face. Her daughter Xiaoxiao was already used to it. Seeing that I had already prepared the meal, she couldn't hold back a cheer and ran over eagerly. She quickly went to scoop rice from the pot. First, she served her a bowl, then served Blair Yu and K Jiang each a bowl. Only I was left out. When I came out of the kitchen, I saw the three of them sitting around the dining table like a happy family, chatting and laughing together. The three of them ate with relish, and Xiaoxiao praised my cooking repeatedly. Auntie's cooking is still the best. I want another bowl, said Feng Xiaoxiao, Blair Yu's daughter. After the meal, the three gathered in the living room chatting and laughing, with no one clearing the dishes. By the time I finished cleaning up, the three had returned to K Jiang's bedroom. though I didn't know what they were doing, left alone in the living room. I felt a bit like an outsider, or perhaps the one who didn't belong here. No, not an extra person, but their free nanny. Jiang seemed to notice my unhappiness and quickly explained, "Nova, Blair you just got divorced and has nowhere to stay with the child, so they're temporarily living at my place for a while, live with us." "Where are we staying?" I asked Jiang with confusion. "The place we're staying has only 2 rooms. With Jiang and I living separately, each in our own room." "Oh, I can stay in the living room, and Blair and the child can stay in my room," Jiang quickly said. I sighed inwardly. The play had begun before I was ready. "As you wish," I said sullenly. The next day, after Jiang left the house, I packed my belongings, preparing to return to the village tomorrow to dissolve the engagement. Jiang and I had been betrothed since childhood. To annul the engagement, I needed to return to the countryside, find both sets of parents, inform them of the matter, and after mutual discussion, return the betrothal gifts before the engagement could be formally dissolved. The procedures are simple, without too much hassle, and Jiang doesn't seem to care much about our engagement either. Once, we talked about marriage, and he said there was no rush, that we could wait until after I graduated. But one day, Jiang said to me, "Let's get married." I glanced at him. Could he still be deluding himself into thinking he could trap me in the prison of family, making me serve them unpaid for a lifetime? That was exactly the scheme he had plotted in our past life. He handed all the household responsibilities to me, knowing full well I was the type to endure hardship without complaint. Meanwhile, he established another family outside. My family with him is a marriage in name only, while he and Blair you have a real relationship without the name. The thought of their family of 4 living together in a past life, while I was left out, makes my heart ache. I grit my teeth, convinced that my decision is right. I must not go back to the old ways. Since the heavens have given me a chance to be reborn, it means I should live a different life this time. "Nova, are you feeling unwell somewhere?" Jiang asked me with concern. "It's just my period. I'm fine," I lied. "As long as it's nothing serious, that's good. These are the dishes Blair you likes. You can just make these tonight." Jiang unfolded a piece of paper before my eyes as he spoke. I took it. Tears welling up in my eyes. Damn it, I'm on my period, feeling so awful, and instead of caring for me, he actually wants me to go buy that bitch's favorite snacks for her. What the hell was he thinking? Has his brain short-circuited or something? I threw the paper on the ground and said angrily, "I don't have time. If you want to do it yourself. After all, she's your person." When Jiang saw me like this, he was instantly stunned. I, who have always been very docile, suddenly became like this today. "Nova, don't talk nonsense. How could she be my person? Since you don't like her, I'll have her leave this place. You should be more generous and show compassion to the weak. You need to show more care for Blair you and her daughter," Jiang said to me before leaving. I watched Jiang's retreating figure and gave a cold smile. Had I not experienced my past life, perhaps I would have believed his words. It was only through the experiences of my past life that I realized my own generosity and care for others had pushed me to the brink. In my past life, I spent years caring for the elderly and my son, but when the elderly passed away and my son grew up and moved to the city, I discovered, just when I needed care myself, that it had all been a deception, or perhaps it was I who had walked step by step into the abyss. I made others gradually think that I am useless and a burden. Yet they showed no gratitude at all, and even ended up feeling like they had become a burden to others. Since I knew the son I was going to have would be a scumbag just like his father, I decided not to let him be born. I became even more resolute in my decision. Jiang came back very late. I was sitting on the sofa. "You've eaten, right?" he said to me, intentionally or not. I didn't respond to him. "I've already eaten at work." Seeing that I didn't respond, he felt awkward and tried to explain himself. As he walked past me, I caught the scent of rose perfume on him, the same fragrance I'd noticed on Blair Yu before. This convinced me he must have taken Blair Yu and her mother out for dinner that evening. Clearly, since I wasn't cooking for them anymore, he'd taken them out to eat before coming home. He didn't bring anything back for me at all. Seems like I never even crossed his mind. That evening, neither of us spoke. We each retreated to our own rooms. I tidied up my room, holding the admission letter from Southwest University in my hands, my heart surging with excitement. I feel much more relaxed now. No matter what, I'm leaving this place to regain my freedom. I sold the books I no longer needed and earned 50 yuan, which can cover my travel expenses to Southwest University. I'm packing my luggage in the room. Jiang was knocking on the door outside. I locked the door from the inside, not wanting him to interfere with my plans. Nova, why did you lock the door? What are you doing in there? I'm tired and want to rest. Don't disturb me, I said casually. Listen to me. Blair Yu's husband was my good friend. After he died in a car accident, it was only right for me to take on the responsibility of looking after his wife and daughter. What a shameless man. Even if you're looking after someone's wife, you shouldn't keep her by your side like that. The care is simply meticulous. If your friend finds out, they'd be thanking your ancestors for 8 generations. It's all right, I'm not angry with her. I understand you. Go back and rest, I said to him very politely. I know he's trying his best to keep me steady. He also knows where else he could find free labor like me, in my past life. I believed him when he thought this way in his heart. In this life, it's absolutely impossible. I'll accompany you back for a trip, said Jiang. He still doesn't know that I'm going home this time to break off the engagement. I was about to speak when suddenly Feng Xiuxiu ran in from outside and said to Jiang, Uncle Jiang, my mom says she's feeling unwell and wants to go to the hospital. All right, I'll go over right away. He turned to me and said, Nova. Frowning, I instinctively waved my hand and said, Go ahead, I can get home by myself. The commotion outside had ceased, pausing for a brief moment. All right, I'll be back soon. The sound of him closing the door was heard. Jiang glanced out the window, looking downstairs, and saw him hurriedly leading Feng Xiuxiu toward the building across the street. I know he definitely won't come back tonight. This isn't the first time this has happened. Blair Yu was too embarrassed to come find Jiang herself, so she sent her daughter to look for him instead. I was wondering, since Blair Yu rents a single room, where would Jiang sleep if he doesn't come back at night? Could 3 people really sleep in one bed? If the 2 of them made too much noise at night, wouldn't it disturb Xiuxiu's sleep? I couldn't be bothered with those embarrassing matters. The next day, early in the morning, I took my packed luggage and hurried back home. After arriving home, I told my parents about my decision to break off the engagement. My parents were stunned and looked at me in disbelief, thinking they had misheard. You heard me right. I really want to break off the engagement with him, I said firmly. How could you do this? Jiang graduated from university and found a stable job in the city. He's a good man. How could you? My father said angrily, puffing on his pipe. Smoke billowed from his mouth and nose with every word he spoke. Yes, child, you 2 grew up playing together since you were little. Childhood sweethearts. Their family is quite satisfied too, so you should just live happily together, my mother comforted. I shook my head. You mustn't think this way anymore. You have no idea. After you left, I suffered for a lifetime. I really don't want to repeat the same mistake. Mom and Dad, what era are we in now? Arranged childhood marriages are outdated. People might seem fine when they're young, but they can change as they grow up. Just look at the Zhong family behind our house. Everyone used to praise their son, saying he'd surely make something of himself when he grew up. But in the end, he turned to reckless behavior, even trying to rob a bank with a kitchen knife, only to be shot dead on the spot by armed police. I spoke earnestly to my parents. So you're saying Jiang has changed? My father put down his tobacco pipe and stared at me as he asked. My dad was still sharp. He caught on immediately. I nodded with a pout and told my parents about his relationship with Blair Yu. That can't be. Maybe Jiang was just being kind, wanting to help a poor mother and daughter. My mother said, my mother is kind-hearted and genuine, always thinking the best of people. But nowadays, people are more terrifying than ghosts, nothing like what she imagines. I can't tell them how I died in my past life. They wouldn't believe me anyway. They'd just think I'm crazy. My dad lowered his head and took a couple of puffs on his cigarette. Marriage is a major event that concerns Nova's entire life. We can't just settle. I believe what Nova says, since it can't work out. There's no need to force it. After speaking, my dad tapped the pipe against the sole of his shoe, stood up, and said to my mom, "Take the engagement agreement, along with the betrothal gifts they gave our family, and return everything to them." I was so happy I nearly jumped for joy. My parents still loved me dearly, knowing that forcing such a marriage to continue would be extremely unfair to me. My mother sighed and dug out the marriage contract and the betrothal gifts from the Jiang family from the bottom of the chest. Back then, the betrothal gifts weren't much, only 500 yuan. Looking back now, I realize how cheaply I was valued at that time. My parents took me to Jiang's house. His home wasn't far from mine, just across an alley. My parents told Jiang's parents about the matter. Jiang's parents were very surprised upon hearing it. Father Jiang asked, "Why call off the engagement? Jiang has already joined a company now, and I heard he's doing well with a high salary. Your Nova would practically be marrying up by joining our family." I smiled and said, "I'm afraid we can't reach that high." Mother Jiang, sensing something in my words, pressed further. "Has Jiang taken a liking to another woman?" "Pretty much," I nodded in reply. "Nova, what on earth is going on?" Mom Jiang asked with concern. I told Jiang's parents the whole story without holding anything back, saying what needed to be said. After hearing my account, Jiang's parents remained silent for a long time. Then, Dad Jiang sighed and said, "A grown son is no longer under his father's control. Since that's the case, we'll respect our child's wishes." And so, our family called off the engagement with the Jiang family. At that moment, I finally let out a deep sigh of relief, feeling much lighter, like a bird set free. As Jiang's parents saw us out the door, I turned back to take one last look at the elderly couple. In my past life, I had served them for 17 years. Jiang said his parents were in poor health and asked me to take our son back to the countryside to care for them. I, listened to Jiang's words, returned to the countryside with my son, working the fields while serving the elderly and taking care of my child. 17 years passed just like that. One after another, I bid farewell to Jiang's parents, fulfilling his filial duties on his behalf. Ah, what a wretched fate. I watched as Jiang's parents supported each other while seeing us off, and I waved at them. "Farewell, just don't pester me anymore. Better let your son find a daughter-in-law to take care of you," fetching chamber pots and bedpans. Looking back now, why was my past self so foolish? I spent 10 days with my parents, then said goodbye to them as I prepared to return to the city. My parents accompanied me all the way to the village bus stop. Their eyes filled with worry. They kept chattering on and on, telling me to go back and talk things over properly with Jiang, and not to argue. The elderly couple even stuffed $500 they had painstakingly saved into my pocket, which I only discovered after boarding the car. I waved to the old couple through the car window, reassuring them not to worry. I secretly made up my mind to work hard and earn money, so I could bring them to the city and let them enjoy a happy retirement. I returned to the city. Opening the door, I saw Jiang and Blair Yu, mother and daughter, sitting together in the living room, chatting and laughing happily. When they saw me return, all three faces simultaneously showed expressions of surprise and annoyance. This kind of annoyance was something I had experienced in my past life. Back then, my son was also there. Thankfully, that little troublemaker hasn't been born yet. However, I won't let him be born here with me. "Why did you come back so soon?" Jiang asked with an unhappy expression. Blair Yu nodded at me reservedly, then stood up and took Xiuxiu into my room. I frowned as I watched her close the door to my room. "I'm here to get my things. Don't worry, I won't disturb your happy life anymore," I said coldly. "What?" Jiang asked in surprise. "What do you mean by that?" I walked into my room and saw that it had already been taken over by Blair Yu. My things are gone, and her stuff is in their place. Jiang followed in. "You weren't home these past few days, so Blair Yu stayed here temporarily." Jiang explained urgently. "No, it's nothing. I don't mind at all. Let her stay here. I was just about to move out anyway." "Where are my things?" I asked. "In the living room," he said in a low voice. I pushed past him and walked out of the room. Seeing my belongings haphazardly piled in the living room, I turned to look at Jiang. He had a somewhat ashamed expression on his face. "Nova, Don't misunderstand. I heard that the building where Blair rented had a break-in, and she was scared. So I let her and her daughter stay here temporarily. I saw you weren't here, and there weren't many of your things, so I let her stay in your room for the time being. I didn't expect you to come back without calling me first, so, without my consent, they cleared out my things to make room for someone else. I ignored him and lowered my head to start packing my things. Don't be so impulsive, okay? I know you're jealous, Kei Jiang said shamelessly. Jealous? I let out a soft scoff. We're already engaged, her husband is my friend, who else is going to take care of her if not me? Nova, you should have a little compassion, okay? Kei Jiang continued to sweet-talk me. In my past life, I would have believed his words. I might even have been moved by his kindness. In my previous life, it was under the spell of his beautiful lies that I foolishly served him for free my entire life. Don't flatter yourself, our engagement has been called off. I handed him the annulment document. He took it in a panic, unfolded it to look, and his face suddenly turned deathly pale. How could this be? I didn't agree, so it doesn't count. He shouted angrily. We were never actually married, it was just an arranged childhood betrothal. Legally, it doesn't count as marriage at all, I said indignantly. Even if I married him, I'd have to leave him as soon as possible. To me, he is nothing but a demon and a curse. Nova, let's talk this through properly, okay? If you see anything wrong with me, just say it. Kei Jiang immediately changed his tone, pleading. I suddenly came to my senses. It turns out that everything I did in my past life was all part of a scheme he deliberately set up for me. The purpose of marrying me was solely to bear him a son and take care of his parents. He knew his parents' health was poor and that in the future, he would need someone as gullible as me to support them. Meanwhile, he could happily live his life outside with that Blair you. I saw clearly his ugly face and couldn't suppress the anger in my heart, my eyes blazing with fury. I swung my arm and gave him a resounding slap. The sharp slap sent him spinning in place, leaving him dazed and disoriented. Blair Yu and her daughter, hearing the noise, hurried out of the room and peered at us. With Xiaoxiao unable to comprehend what was happening, Blair Yu reached out, pulled Xiaoxiao into the room, and gently closed the door. I heard Xiaoxiao asking, Mom, what's wrong with Uncle and Auntie? Uncle and Auntie are playing a game. Don't go telling the other kids, okay? Blair Yu whispered. Kei Jiang covered his face with his hands, staring at me in shock. He's always the one who calls the shots, and I never dare to resist. But today, I actually gave him a hard slap. The slap left him stunned, unable to snap out of it for a long time. Consider this slap as repayment for what I endured in my past life. Get out, I said, pointing at the door. Kei Jiang was stunned by my imposing manner and felt fear in his heart. He had never seen me so furious before. How could he know that I had lived a past life, one where he had ruined me for a lifetime? He backed away in terror, retreating out of the room. Only when he reached the doorway did he realize this was his own home. He scurried into his room and shut the door behind him, like a frightened mouse. He had fled into the safety of his burrow. It turns out he's the type who bullies the weak but fears the strong. In my past life, I regarded him as a mountain to lean on, only to find out it was a paper mountain, unreliable, collapsing at the slightest touch. I packed up my belongings and walked out the door. When I reached downstairs, I looked up at the place I once called home and saw Kei Jiang and Blair Yu standing by the window, watching me. Feng Xiaoxiao still didn't know what had happened. A relieved and joyful smile appeared on Blair Yu's face. Heh, laugh while you can. She still doesn't know how this will end. The day will come when you'll be the one crying. I finally left that scumbag, and with him, the misfortune of my past life. Stepping out the door, my body felt as if a weight had been lifted, much lighter, like a bird freed from its cage, ready to spread its wings and fly far away. After years of hard study at Southwest University, I achieved outstanding grades. The university wanted to keep me on as a lecturer. But I politely declined. I have my own aspirations and don't want to be constrained by others, even if it's that extremely stable job. After graduation, I joined a foreign-funded company. Through several years of hard work, I quickly rose to the position of regional general manager. Coincidentally, the sector I was responsible for included that familiar city. since I'm back, I'm going to stay, take things as they come. I bought a house in the city and planned to bring my parents to live there. After arranging my work, I drove back to the village. The village now has paved asphalt roads, and I drove my car into the village. The villagers, seeing me behind the wheel of a luxury car worth over $1 million, stopped to point and whisper, "Whose family does this belong to? Driving such a car, must be someone wealthy. That looks like the Zheng family's daughter, Nova. I heard she was originally betrothed to the Jiang family since childhood, but that Jiang boy pulled a Chen Shimai and abandoned Nova. Now look at her, she's made a fortune. The Jiang family must be kicking themselves with regret." Absolutely. I heard the wife from the Jiang family is nothing good either. What's wrong? My car slowly moved forward as I listened to the villagers' discussions outside, but as the car drove farther away, their voices gradually became indistinct. I no longer have any connection with Ke Jiang, and I would rather avoid him if possible. I have not the slightest interest in the Jiang family's affairs. It's like a nightmare to me. After waking from the nightmare, I never want to recall that past again. As I passed by the Jiang family's house, I couldn't help but glance over, seeing their door tightly shut. The courtyard so dilapidated it seemed uninhabited. I remember in my past life at this time, I was bustling about serving Ke Jiang's parents. While Jiang Hanyang played with toys in the yard, the neighbors all praised me, saying the Jiang family had accumulated virtue in a past life to find such a virtuous daughter-in-law. At that moment, I was still very happy, feeling quite pleased. Moral blackmail is truly deadly. If anyone ever praises me like that again in this lifetime, I'll step forward and give them a big slap. In reality, the person who said those words had ulterior motives. Seeing someone else's daughter-in-law working like an ox or a horse, she felt extremely resentful. They were saying this for their own daughters-in-law to hear, urging them to follow my example. This reminded me of the chastity archways that ancient people specifically erected for women. Later, I learned from my parents that after I broke up with Ke Jiang, he married Blair Yu. Ke Jiang wasn't originally in a hurry to get married. He still hoped I would change my mind and return to be his slave. Unexpectedly, he lost control and got Blair Yu pregnant, left with no other choice. He had to marry her because of the child. Looking back now, he was truly a cunning person. Fortunately, in this life I woke up and stayed far away from him. However, any woman who ends up with someone like him is bound to have terrible luck. But as the saying goes, there's always someone who can outmatch another. Later, I heard that Blair Yu gave birth to a son for him. I secretly rejoiced in my heart. This is great. This scumbag son was actually born by Blair Yu. Only then did I feel relieved in my heart. Ke Jiang's parents are in poor health. Father Jiang was often an alcoholic, which eventually led to him suffering a stroke, leaving him bedridden. With Mother Jiang taking care of him by his side, Mother Jiang's health wasn't good either, and before long, she also fell ill. Mother Jiang called Ke Jiang, crying and making a scene, demanding that he return to take care of his elderly parents. Ke Jiang had no choice but to ask Blair Yu to bring their child and come over to take care of his parents. Blair Yu was utterly unwilling in her heart, but couldn't resist Ke Jiang's daily nagging in her ear. Blair Yu had no choice but to bring the two children to the Jiang family's home. Ke Jiang's parents lay on the bed like zombies, the room dim and filled with a foul stench. It made it impossible for me to breathe. The two children had never seen such a scene before and cried out, begging to leave this place. Blair Yu had even less desire to stay here any longer. She knew all too well in her heart that if she were tied down here, her life would be as good as over. The next morning, Blair Yu grumbled and cursed as she took the two children back to the city. The whole house is covered in piss and shit. How am I supposed to take care of this? You're their son. You go take care of it. Blair Yu snapped at Ke Jiang as soon as she got home. Ke Jiang knew Blair Yu's temper. Once she refused to do something, no amount of sweet talk could change her mind. Besides, the reality was right in front of them. Blair Yu wasn't as foolish as I was in my past life, obediently following his every word like I did. Ke Jiang had no choice. Since he couldn't take time off work to care for his elderly parents, he deliberately procrastinated and ignored their needs, seeing that their son was neglecting them. Jiang's parents hired people and a car to take them to Jiang's workplace. At the entrance of Jiang's workplace, Jiang's father lay on the ground, while his mother sat on the ground. They cursed Jiang as an ungrateful wretch, accusing him of abandoning them after they had raised him, supported him, and paid for his college education, only for him to neglect them in their illness. Jiang's supervisor originally intended to promote him to department manager. But after his parents' disruptive behavior caused a terrible impression, the supervisor abandoned the idea of promoting him and ordered him to treat his elderly parents better. Helpless, Jiang had no choice but to rent a single room near his home and move his parents in. He worked during the day and took care of his parents at night. When I heard about this, I secretly laughed to myself. What Jiang is doing now is what I did in my past life. The suffering he endures now is also what I endured in my past life. Fortunately, I've avoided it in this life. By avoiding him, I've avoided all these things. A few more years passed, and I resigned to start my own business, establishing an electronics company. Over the years, I made a fortune. I also found someone who loves me. At a class reunion, I heard classmates say that Jiang got divorced. Blair Yu married Jiang's supervisor, Director Wang, and took their daughter Xiuxiu with her. Director Wang, also a divorcee, had long been drooling over Blair Yu's beauty and alluring figure. Taking advantage of Jiang's absence while he was caring for his parents, Director Wang seized the opportunity to step in and care for Blair Yu in Jiang's place. With Jiang rarely able to return home due to his parental duties, the lonely Blair Yu couldn't resist Director Wang's advances and ended up in bed with him. During one of his rare visits home, Jiang walked in on Director Wang and Blair Yu engaged in a game of human stacking on the bed. Jiang was furious upon seeing this, and Director Wang fled in panic. Jiang had a big fight with Blair Yu and went through divorce proceedings. Blair Yu left their son Jiang Hanyang with him. Once, when I went to the trade center with my fiancé Zhao Chifeng, I saw Jiang and his son setting up a stall by the roadside. It turned out that he had already been dismissed by Director Wang on some pretext. The reason was that during a company gathering, Jiang, fueled by his resentment over Director Wang stealing his wife, got drunk and publicly berated Director Wang, even going so far as to physically assault him. As a result, in a fit of anger, Director Wang fired him the very next day. Jiang returned home, seething with rage, and vented his anger by yelling at his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Jiang. Curse them for not dying sooner, ruining his life. Not long after, Jiang's parents died in depression. In their previous life, the elderly couple lived 17 years longer than now. When I saw Jiang, I could hardly recognize him. The once handsome face has now aged considerably, with a 30-year-old man sporting many white hairs. If one isn't paying attention, they might mistake him for a man in his 50s or 60s. I remember in my past life, even in his 50s, his hair remained jet black and shiny, just like a 30-year-old's, yet at that time, my own hair was completely white. Such is the irony of fate. Past and present are indeed different. If I hadn't decisively and wisely left him, perhaps I would have become a substitute. Nova, is that you? Jiang looked up and saw me, rushing over recklessly to embrace me. I pushed him away. Who are you? I demanded sharply. I'm Jiang, don't you recognize me? At that moment, my fiancé Zhao Chifeng rushed over and shielded me behind him. What's going on? Zhao Chifeng asked. I didn't answer him. Instead, I said to Jiang, this is my fiancé, we're already engaged, and we're very much in love. You'd better stay away from me. Darling, I'll tell you about my past later. I turned and said to Zhao Chifeng. All right, Zhao Chifeng replied, putting his arm around me as we walked toward the commercial building. I heard Jiang fall to his knees, wailing. What sin did I commit in my past life for heaven to punish me like this? Nova, if there's a next life, I swear I'll treat you right. I let out a soft hum. No, in the next life, please don't let me see you again. Let's part forever. The second year after marriage, I sat in the villa facing the sea. I glanced at Zhao Chifeng beside me, covering my slightly protruding belly, and asked, do you hope for a boy or a girl? A girl, I nodded. Me too, as heaven decrees, I gave birth to a girl, very adorable. After seeing her, my parents said, she looks just like I did when I was little. 17 years later, my daughter had already grown up, graceful and beautiful, becoming more and more lovely, and very filial to me, just as I was to my parents. My parents are already 80 years old. Yet they remain very healthy and strong. They just returned from a trip to New Zealand, now living with me. The elderly couple are happy every day, free from any worries, peacefully enjoying their twilight years. One day, as I drove past the shabby neighborhood where I once lived with K Jiang, I saw K Jiang being beaten black and blue by a young man who looked very much like him, howling in pain. I stopped the car and asked the person next to me what was going on. The one hitting him is his son, Jiang Hanyang. He wanted his father to buy him a house for marriage, but his father couldn't afford it, so he beat him up. Ah, what a sin. Exactly, what sins did this man commit in his past life? Passers-by were buzzing with discussions. Only I know what sins he committed in his past life. I had no interest in watching and drove off to pick up my daughter from school.